This is Cold Start.
And for today's episode, I think it'd be a fun time to kind of go back to a checkered past, which is usually us talking about old motorsport stories. This one isn't as old, but a couple weeks ago, I went and did a track day out at Thunderhill, and it was my first time in a long time doing just a track day. Not a test day, not a race, not a competition event, but just going out to the track for fun.
We talk really good game about once you start racing, once you're in the motorsports mindset, the way you go about going to the track, what you go to the track to do, how you try to accomplish what you're there to do is just so different. And going back to track days seems like another world. But you did that, and I want to hear all about your experiences. Was it everything that you remember? Did it have the special quality, that magic that those track days had back when you started, or did it feel like something else?
Kind of seems like a step backwards, right? I mean, whenever we get into motorsports, I think track days is where you start. And there's a lot of magic in that because it's your first time ever going to a racetrack, your first time being on track, driving in a performance setting and being out there on a raceway. Then you want to move into competition and then, racing wheel to wheel. And then that moves maybe potentially even further than that and going to more professional events or whatever you can. Now, I hadn't done a track day like this in, years. I hadn't been on track in probably over a year. And so I decided a couple buddies were wanting to go to Thunderhill, and I'm like, all right, there's no reason I shouldn't go. I have a car that's been in storage for probably too long, the old Spec E30. It's just been collecting dust for the most part, and I really didn't have an excuse. And so as enough good friends going, I'm like, all right, I'm in. So, did the typical prep, got the car ready, stuff like that. And I went into going to this track day in the headspace of just, I'm just going to go out there and have a good time, just to have fun, not putting any pressure on myself. It's hard to kind of leave that competitive mindset behind, but I was like, open eyes, just going to have a good time.
That's what we say track days are for, right? You go there to learn the basics and to have fun. And as soon as you're in a competitive mindset, that's not really the right forum for you anymore. So I was kind of curious how going back into that, were you able to have fun? Did it recapture that sense of learning how to do it again? And in particular, I'm really curious, how did the reputation of old BMWs being super reliable prove itself out when you went back to your Spec E30 after it coming out of mothballs effectively for like a year and a half?
So the mindset of it of, okay, just go have fun, leave the competitiveness behind, I think is very challenging. And I thought that it was going to be pretty simple going of just like, yeah, don't put pressure on yourself, like have a good time. Now going through the sessions, first session out in this car that's been sitting for a long time, first lap out, I'm like, okay, take it easy. You haven't been in a car in a long time. Just get used to it. I hadn't been to Thunderhill in maybe 2-3 years. I hadn't forgotten how to drive the track, but, I'm trying to be sensible here and not go 10/10 right off the bat. So on my out lap, I'm like, I'm going to take it easy. Of course, on my out lap, I have someone behind me that's just right on my tail. I'm like, of course. So I give them a point by a couple times. They're not taking the point by to go by. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm just going to go straight into this cold tires. I'll figure it out. And so I had to get up to pace fairly quickly just to kind of stay out of people's way. I didn't want to mess up this other person's lap, trying to give them point bys. A little awkward situation. Fine, I'll get on it. I'll go. Of course, cold tires, cars all over the place. I'm kind of a little chaotic in my headspace, not really been able to find my rhythm. After a couple laps, I find it a little bit as I'm starting to push the car and it's warming up and, going towards red line, finding my shift points, all that good stuff. Of course, something has to have happened. It starts breaking up on the top end. I'm not even able to get to red line. The air fuel mixture, I have a little gauge on my dashboard. It's off. It's doing weird, funky stuff. And I'm like, all right, first session, am I really trying to push this? No, I should figure out what's going on with the car, get it set up, dialed in for the rest of the day. I got plenty more sessions to get that figured out. So I pull in early off my first session. I'm looking at things. The beauty of a 1980s BMW, so this is the M20 motor in the E30 3 Series, so just a standard 325. The beauty of those motors, not a lot of electronics. There's not a lot that could be going wrong in regards to the air-fuel mixture. There's just this little sweeper arm that controls the air and the fuel that goes into the engine, and sometimes that can get gunked up over time. Especially with these cars, you're on full throttle for so long, the top end of that little sweeper arm can get a little dirty.
It's the beauty and sort of the inherent shortcomings of mechanical technology, right? Not relying on electronics means, hey, maybe you can diagnose and fix the thing versus having to send out a part or a board. But at the same time, stuff goes wrong maybe way more often than you'd expect because it's moving parts.
I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, the M20s are pretty robust. Like, I'm still on my same engine that's been built. It was built by North Bay Bavarian in Northern California, and been racing that car for probably 10 years, almost 10 years on the same motor. No rebuild, nothing. I mean, the things are pretty much bulletproof once you put them together correctly. They run awesome. So this little bit of a hiccup. Thankfully, the old owner of North Bay Bavarian, Rick Rowe, he was there too. He was running his 2002 race car, not the year 2002, a BMW 2002. Pretty rad little thing. He was doing vintage events, stuff like that. He was out with another friend. They were just testing. So I kind of asked him, I was like, hey, is there any secret to like help clean this little sweeper arm for the AFM? And he was like, funny enough, find a pencil with a rubber eraser and you use that eraser just to clean where the contact mark for the sweeper arm is. So went to registration, we grabbed a pencil with an eraser. I just erased basically the top end of where that sweeper arm is. After that, ran awesome. So, I mean, simple fix for an old car. So yes, maybe we're putting BMW unreliability here, but it worked out pretty simple. And for the rest of the day, it was perfect.
It's one of those things, going back to the track day, it's sort of stripping it all back down to the basics. So it's really nice to have that sort of sense of cars worked in a way that was understandable. And if there's a problem, there's potential diagnoses we can do and symptoms that we can uncover to figure out what's going on. And I love the fact that the way to erase this particular problem was literally with a pencil eraser.
Yeah, super simple, super easy. It was like a 5-minute fix and everything was good to go.
That MacGyver-y kind of spirit of how motorsports kind of came out, and for the guy to be out there in his late 60s, 2002, that's super cool. And I love that story.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is kind of a benefit of running older cars on track as well as like purpose-built race cars, is when things go wrong, it should be a simple fix because they're designed to be at racetracks with simple tools to like figure stuff out. I mean, when you get into the newer stuff, now you need a full engineering team and all that jazz. But anyway, we'll move past that. So the car ran awesome on track, was able to do a handful of sessions after that, had a great time. Now, the group of people that I was there with, obviously BMW people, I think 80% of them brought E90 M3s, street cars. And of course, those cars have far more horsepower than I do. I mean, a Spec E30 only has, or it's only allowed to have 160 horsepower. The car weighs 2,900 pounds. The power to weight ratio isn't great. You're on 205 tires too. They're not maximized for speed. They're maximized for competition. So here I am of like, yeah, I've done racing and I've done all this sort of stuff and I have all my friends there and it's like, I'm going to go faster than them. This is the competitive side already creeping back in of like, no, don't have fun. You need to be the best and go the fastest. But I'm comparing myself of like a low horsepower momentum car against some higher horsepower cars that they have. Now, when we're on track, I didn't really find any of my friends. Like I was hoping, my mindset of going to this track day, I was like, oh, I'm going to have fun and dice it up with my friends on track and we're going to go out in packs and stuff like that. It didn't really happen that way, unfortunately. Like I had a lot of open track, which usually when you go to a track day, that's all you're seeking for. It's open track. No one's in your way. It's just you have the track to yourself. For me, I found very quickly that being alone and just turning lap after lap, I'm like, where's the excitement? I kind of want to like catch someone or have another car, or like think about a pass. Like very quickly I saw like this racer mindset like creeping back in of like, this is boring. Like I don't want to just be out here just turning laps. Like there's no excitement in that. I'm also in a car that's not very exciting in the first place to do laps. So I'm like, I need something else to excite me. And that's where I was kind of like itching for more almost.
You know, when you're down on power like that, but in close competition wheel to wheel, your goal is just to outpace the guy next to you, right? You don't have an absolute target time or what have you. And you sure don't have the challenges of a public track day where there's a guy in his brand new 911 GT3 coming up on you and all he knows how to do is stomp on the throttle pedal and go fast in a straight line and then is terrified in the corners and maybe you can catch up to him. But just that dynamic all day over and over again. So I have to imagine going back to the public track day had to be as much of an adjustment as going back to a track day in this car that's down on power compared to everybody else out there, because you're maybe more accustomed to or have been used to dealing with people who are in similar class machinery. Or on the flip side, track days where they're test days, they're more competition oriented, people out there running their own program, but with the goal of turning fast lap times more so than just out there to have a good time.
Right. And I think that's what like really surprised me of coming out of this track day of like, when I went into it, I didn't really think much about like what sort of mental space do I need to be in. I was just like, go have fun. That was like the extent of me trying to like figure out how to like do this track day. And what I found out like very quickly is like, man, I really should have done more like prep mentally of going back to a track day. I didn't think it was going to be like such a drastic change of always doing competition, racing for so long, always being in those wheel-to-wheel scenarios or like practicing, testing for a race coming up, always comparing myself against other people in similar equipment. That was always my mindset. That was always kind of where I found the enjoyment, was the competition side rather than just being on track. Now, in the beginning, like you were talking about, your very first track days, you're just excited to be there, right? You're excited to turn laps on these new tracks. Maybe you're trying a new car, a new setup, whatever it is. Here I am in a car that I've raced for 10 years, been in racing situations for 10 years. Now, later on, same car I've been in for a very long time. Now I'm outside of a race scenario. It was boring. Like, I'm sorry to say this of like going to this track day and putting in all this effort, but afterwards I was kind of like, man, that really didn't like fire me up in any sort of way. I didn't feel fulfilled. I was kind of like it was cool. It was fun. I really enjoyed the community aspect of being there with friends, which I hadn't done in a very long time, of going to a track day event with friends. Very, very valuable in that. But the actual on-track experience really wasn't fulfilling. And it was kind of like, I didn't have anyone to compare against. I didn't know if I was turning good lap times or bad lap times. I really, really needed like a goal. I needed an objective. And going in with the objective of just have fun, I didn't realize that the definition of me having fun on a track is being competitive, is having goals and reaching goals or trying to achieve something. So yes, I came in with the right idea of just have a good time because it's a track day. You're not going to win the track day. But I didn't really understand fully going into this what my definition of fun really is, being behind the wheel of a car on a racetrack.
Inherently, and this sounds almost like a politician would say, but it depends on what your definition of fun is. And I think when you're first learning to drive a car at the racetrack, just the activity is fun, just turning up, and everything you do is kind of creating these new pathways in your brain and your body. So it's all fun. You're learning. You're constantly experiencing something new. Then you've been at it a while and you find that maybe there's this specific approach within driving that you are really excited by. Maybe it's time trials for you. Like some people really like challenging with a single car to see what they can accomplish, and they're out there fighting against themselves every single time, and maybe the vehicle and the racetrack. For some people, and I think for you, wheel-to-wheel competitive action is what makes fun. You go out there, you dice it up with people in similar machinery. You're out there. It's all about the technique, the approach, strategy, having foresight, being able to maximize what you need to do in that moment when there's a sudden momentary change of dynamics. Like all of that's really fun. But then there's like the other side of this, which is now in retrospect, having had those experiences, how do you reinsert yourself into that maybe earlier or more beginning phase of experience and go and have fun? Like, what does that even mean to do? Hang with friends? Well, we both discussed how track days are actually kind of hard for that, especially if you're going to a track day by a public provider, because you're going to be broken in sessions. You might not be out in the same sessions as your buddies. You're constantly keeping your eye on the time, and it makes it really hard. But I was really kind of vicariously interested to see how your experience was, because similarly, I've not gone and done a publicly operated, track day provider track day in quite a while. And maybe I'm just spoiled because I've either been racing or, more test days or private days. And the experience there is very different than the mob of cars of whomever shows up is on track with you. So I can imagine it requires just a different approach altogether.
Oh, 100%. And I was so surprised to see that, yeah, there is kind of a mental approach that you have to go about it. Like, it's not as easy as just plugging yourself in to one of those early stages. Now, I really like what you said about the progress of moving through of what's exciting and moving on to the next thing. And I think this is a really great comparison because a lot of people talk about motorsports being an addictive activity. Now, what are some other things that we think about being addicted to? Drugs. Now, we can compare doing your first track day to like an introductory drug. We're not going to get deep into like drug talk, but like I think you can see where I'm going with this of like your first track day is like doing like your first drug. And then after that, you kind of want more. You want a stronger high. So not just doing track days, whether that's going into time trials, finding that competitiveness, chasing after a lap time, or then getting into wheel-to-wheel racing, right? We're continually in motorsports. We're always chasing that bigger high. Now, once you get into motorsports, once you get into wheel-to-wheel racing, now you want to race something faster. You want to go to a harder track, more difficult, higher risk. All these things, we continue to chase the dragon down the trail for a bigger and bigger high. Now, imagine if you were a drug addict and you're getting like this insane high, you're shooting up heroin, whatever it is, and then someone like says like, dude, you should just chill out and have fun and like smoke a joint. You're not going to get the same high. Like, that is a challenging thing to do from going shooting heroin to then going to a track day. Now, this comes in like twofold of the situation I found myself in, which was one, going from wheel-to-wheel racing, being in a competitive environment with motorsports, to just a normal, lazy track day on a Sunday, but then also the car that I was driving. So it's chasing competition, but then also chasing speed, right? And as you drive different vehicles and you get deeper and deeper into motorsports, you always want to go faster, whether that's making yourself faster or driving just simply quicker vehicles around the track.
And find that limit of the vehicle while you're doing so.
Right. More horsepower, bigger downforce, better lap times, slick tires, changing vehicles, going from GT cars to full-blown race cars. There's all these changes we can make. And to be honest, like, driving the road course sprint car, something that has a crazy power to weight ratio, really dramatic driving experience, really on the edge and fast and quick and loud, and like the overall experience, the high that you get from driving that car is insane. So then going back to the tried and true Spec E30, you're kind of like, this thing's lame. It's boring. Like, it's not exciting. It's not fast. The only way that this car would be exciting is if I'm in a pack of 20 cars, beating and banging, bump drafting down the straightaways. That would then make it a little bit more exciting. But the car in and of itself, not that exciting. On a track day, not exciting.
I can't imagine why driving a 160 horsepower vehicle in a pack of regular street cars with all of like 60 feet of elevation isn't as exciting as taking your 500-600 horsepower sprint car up Pikes Peak. I mean, that sounds like it's equally exciting to me.
Right. Well, yeah, that is 100% the comparison that we're going to here. Yeah. It's just like, if I were to bring out the road course sprint car to that track day, I think I would have had more fun, because every time I get behind the wheel of that car, it's a challenge. It's exciting. It's, this unbelievable experience. There's still things to learn, where with the Spec E30, I've kind of, in a sense, been there, done that. I've done everything I can to like learn about that car. Now, if you were to say like, okay, let's put some heavy hitters all in Spec E30s, I'm all about that, right? Like, I'm not saying I'm the best in a Spec E30. Like, that would be exciting. I would push myself. I would have to find those extra little bits of speed to be competitive. And to me, that kind of gets me like frothing at the mouth of very, very excited about it. Now, in this track day, like I said, I did a handful of sessions. At the end of the day, they kind of opened up the track, which was awesome. So I was able to do kind of like a race stint. So I did, 13, 15 continuous laps. And what I found is like I was going so slow, not to the car's ability, but like the car in general is so slow that I found my mind wandering, which we know when you're in a car on a racetrack, you don't want that. But to enter that flow state that we love and we yearn for when we're behind the wheel, to enter flow, you need to have a challenging environment that you also have the skill set to be able to achieve. Now, with the Spec E30, it's no longer a challenging environment. It's not like I'm like super hyper focused on the activity at hand. It's kind of like you got time to think about stuff. And unfortunately, that let my mind kind of like start to wander and think about other things. And I like wasn't dialed in and focused because like there wasn't enough going on behind the wheel or cars around me to like keep me locked in the activity. And I really didn't enter that flow state. I was kind of just in the car cruising around.
Once you've had that adrenaline rush of trying just to hold on to the bucking Bronco that's trying as hard as it can to throw you off while you're trying to ride it fast, compared to like being on the back of a pack mule that you know really well and is reliable, and you can probably, push a little bit, but the overall experience isn't going to be that. So there's your comparison, right? And do you think if you would have brought the sprint car out to the racetrack, you would have been able to achieve a different mindset because the car would be challenging you constantly and giving you something to fight, or giving you some other thing other than just turning laps to have to focus on, and that would have kept you more engaged?
Yeah, 100%. I think like that car, like I haven't been able to drive it maybe as much as I would like to. I mean, I always want to get back behind the wheel. And so like I feel like there's still more about that car to explore, to understand, to make tweaks here and there in my driving style as well as maybe the vehicle setup. We've never taken it to Thunderhill, so it'd be exciting to be like, how is this car going to behave here? What sort of corners? Like turn 2 at Thunderhill East, I was really looking forward to, like, if we brought the sprint car there, it's just this long, sweeping, nice, light banking corner that gives you so much time to, like, explore the limits and the balance of the car.
Yeah.
And for the sprint car, I would love to lean on it more and be like, okay, how sideways can this thing get before it loses itself completely, or does it kind of correct itself? Like, what are more of the sprint car's tendencies at the limit? Because everywhere else that we've taken that car, we haven't been able to like be in an environment that you can safely push the limits and find where that edge is, right? Pikes Peak, not a great place to be like, let's explore the limits of the vehicle. What is it going to do in this situation, right?
Yeah, the cost of failure at turn 2 at Thunderhill is, a bunch of dirt, right?
Exactly. It's like you could push the speed, the entry speed more and more and more until the car just finally gives up and you're in a safe environment where like you can collect the car, you have enough pavement, or you just launch it off in the dirt. You got to wipe the thing down. You're not damaging anything. So the sprint car would have given me enough being out there alone, just kind of like chasing lap times, just like getting more and more comfortable with that car, exploring its limits and pushing my own limits, right? Getting outside my comfort zone even further as a driver. That's what's exciting. We always want to be on the edge of our ability and comfort zone, and that's what gets us into that flow state. Being inside your comfort zone, you're not going to get into flow.
Yeah, and I love hearing race drivers talk about those turns that really challenge them, that give them something fulfilling in reward for them pushing into it. Turn 2 at Thunderhill, turn 1 at Thunderhill as well, but turn 2 is one of those where there's an obvious beginning, middle, and end of that turn.
Right.
It's long, it's a sweeper, it's a place where you can challenge the car in different ways, in different places. You can take different approaches, different lines. Just, it gives you so many possibilities, and it's really different for every car, every day. The kind of thing that it's like that constrained set, but still a lot of variables to this problem. So it gives us that room to explore and find through experimentation what works for us best. And you'd imagine in the sprint car, that's going to feel very different than in the E30. Are there other turns at Thunderhill that you get that same kind of quality from? Like for me, turn 8, as you're getting ready to go up the hill, is one of those where it depends so much on the car I'm driving and what it is I'm trying to accomplish, how hard I push, where I want to set up, that kind of stuff. How about for you?
Yeah, like turn 2, going back and talking about that, like it's not necessarily like a challenging corner and that's what makes it exciting. It's kind of like a skid pad corner. It's a corner that allows you to continue to push the limits of the vehicle and stuff like that. There's excitement in that without high risk. Now, turn 8, it's kind of that fast kink. That's another, I would say, exciting corner in the sense of like, how much can you push? What car are you in? Is it flat? Is it a light lift? Is it a brush of the brakes? Like that corner, turn 8 is so on the limit that there is a lot of excitement there of like, okay, I brushed the brakes a little bit on this lap. Okay, I'm just going to go for a lift, a long lift, then maybe a shorter lift, maybe no lift. Can I just hold the pedal down and just pray and hope? And that excitement of being on the edge is awesome. And like, once again, turn 8, like I don't think there's high consequences there. Like a lot of people talk about like, oh, the best corner on a racetrack is the one that has like high consequences because it's just so exciting and nail biting trying to make the car go through there. Turn 8 doesn't have high consequence. I mean, you don't want to go off in the dirt. There's a lot of ruts out there, but like, I think it's the excitement of just kind of like the edge and exploration, and like being a driver is kind of about exploration of limits and pushing limits and understanding where the bounds of adhesion and sliding are and dancing with that. And so any corner that you can kind of find that, I think makes it really exciting. Now, comparing that to like that concept that I'm talking about of like exploring adhesion, the limits of the vehicle, especially at higher speeds, that's a reason why I love Fast 9, Fast 10 at Sonoma, comparative to running the chicane at Sonoma, the chicane, turn 9 chicane, because the turn 9 chicane, it's like low speed. You're not exploring the limits of the car. Like coming into turn 10, barreling through 9, and you're like, how fast can I enter 10 and not lose the car? That's exciting.
Yeah.
Now, turn 10 also has high consequences, so you have to balance that risk-reward analysis a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, just the excitement of pushing limits. And once again, going back to the Spec E30, well, limits are so low, right? Because the car is not very capable. When I was driving, I was having more fun like sliding the car around, which that's not the fastest way to get around the track. It's not the way to put down the fastest lap times. But I was looking for something. I was looking for like any little nugget that I'm like, okay, I'm having fun. I'm working on car control. I'm doing this, that, the other. And like for that track day, I was really kind of like grasping at straws of like, what can I work on? Because like just being here, having quote unquote fun, like isn't working for me. Like, is there anything that I can like achieve or try to achieve that's going to make me like get somewhat of a kick or fulfillment?
It's really cool and inspiring to see somebody who's mastering their space to the point where if they were to approach the thing that the way everybody else approaches it, it's just kind of too easy. So they're going to have to add some difficulty to make it more interesting, right? Sliding through a turn where, other people are just challenged keeping their adhesion through that turn, let alone sliding on purpose to like have more fun. And maybe you're scrubbing speed off actively, but you're learning about car control and the balance of the car and doing that. And at the same time, the experience that we get from these kinds of things is so different in that the Fast 9, Fast 10 at Sonoma, that's exciting because you have the car at the edge, you're at a high speed. Through other lenses, you might say, well, I really like the chicane because now I added a high-speed brake and downshift area, 2 more turns, and there's this really careful footwork I need to do to get this all right. It feels like I'm dancing with the car to make it turn and move the way I want. And of course, we always say there's more speed to be gained in low-speed corners than in high-speed corners. But yet, the dynamics of driving Fast 9 and 10 at Sonoma, it's so nail-biting. You're so on the edge. You're so considerate of using all that track to make sure that you're maximizing the radius through the turn and you're doing all these things to kind of keep yourself safe. But at the same time, you're on the edge because there's a wall over here and you're getting onto that curbing every time you drive this turn. And you know that the margin there beyond the curbing is grass or dirt. And it might not end well if you put 2 in the dirt there, right? So it's finding that way of gaining excitement and interest from it. Even if you've been there, done that, it's that mindset too of, okay, well, how am I going to explore this thing? I can have just as much fun exploring at low speed or mid speed as high speed if I orient my mind toward the things I'm gaining as a result of that. But sometimes it's just that animal brain, that lizard brain that's go fast, make it scary, let's go, come on, it's really exciting. And a lot of why we do this is that adrenaline that we get from it.
Yeah, 100%. And talking about that of like the low speed stuff and the high speed stuff, both equally as important to get a fast lap. But like you're saying, completely different mindsets or like car feel, right? Because the low speed stuff is a lot more of the technical application of, footwork or how to downshift the car, rev matching, stuff like that, like very much executionary, where like higher speed stuff, in my mind, is more like the feel. Like it's this like, where is the edge? Can I feel the car rotating around me? Is it gripped up? Is it not gripped up? And like higher speed you go, the more you get that sensation of the car moving around, where like lower speed, it's kind of like on off more so of like it's either sliding or it's gripped up kind of deal. But like completely 2 different feels. And like you can totally see how like different drivers and their different styles can cater towards one being more like executionary technique, that sort of deal, versus the other being a little bit more like the feel, the finding the edge, the emotional side of driving a car. And the combination of those 2 things in a racetrack, that makes for a good track because it caters towards one mindset comparative to the other.
And I love those dynamics because I have friends that the way they drive a racetrack is just different than I do. I have a friend, he was a neurosurgeon, and he would literally tell me, oh, on the red and white stripe curbing, it's the 7th stripe that is the one where I'm going to start my turn in. And in my mind, I'm kind of like, I have no idea how many stripes there are. I'm not looking at that. I'm waiting for the moment to feel right to know like that's about the turn-in point, right? So there's definitely these different approaches, and one's not more valid than the other. He was extremely successful in his racing. It was just the way he sort of decomposed the problem. And there are really those kind of multiple approaches to being technically oriented, procedural in your driving, or being a field driver and just kind of going with the flow. And I think another thing is using visual markers, right? Field drivers tend to shy away from, oh, there's the water tank as I'm coming over turn 9 at Thunderhill and using that. Or, I'm going to gauge where I am based on that mark that's on the racetrack because as we know, as the conditions change, as your tires change, as the car changes, that spot is going to be somewhere else every time. So that's where I like the feel. But there are parts, that slow turn through the chicane in turn 9. It's very procedural. It's very technical. It's very about the order of operations, getting them exactly right in a short period of time to do a lot of different things. So it's all fulfilling, but it's a matter of how do you frame that to go back now into this mindset of, I want to go to the track and have fun. Am I going to have more fun doing a lot of procedural things really fast and trying to get them right in an order? Am I going to have more fun tapping into that feel and getting a sense of whether my feel is well tuned to the circumstances necessary?
Yeah, and it's the comparison of like logical driving versus emotional driving. You don't want to be too much of either for the most part to talk about that. But yeah, getting back behind the wheel, I mean, being in the Spec E30, it's like the feel and well as like the procedural execution, once again, just like it wasn't a strong enough high to like make it happen. And so like leaving this track day and kind of like on my trip back home, trailering the car back to where it needed to be stored. And I'm kind of thinking to myself and having this thought kind of conversation in my mind of like, wow, like I really should have thought a little bit more about this of like what was going to make this a fun day. And I still had a great time, but like I didn't get the high that I was kind of expecting to get of going to the track and kind of very surprised by that. But I mean, I guess I shouldn't have been so surprised because like whenever you talk to like racing drivers, they're never like itching to get in a car any chance they can, right? It's more like they want to get in a car with a purpose. Whether that one, they're getting paid, right? At that point, you'll get in anything at any time to do whatever the person that's paying you tells you to do. But like for the most part, like once racing drivers get to that level, I feel like for the most part, they're only like, I'm going to get in the car if it's like worth it to me. And like they kind of understand that of like the competition side of things being really, really important of like, for me, I kind of don't want to go do another track day in the Spec E30. Like I feel like I'm in that complete mindset of like, that isn't fulfilling enough for me. The time, energy, and money spent to go to this track day, I really didn't get like the payoff for that. Now, if there's going to be a race in the future of like, hey, there's going to be like a strong field of Spec E30s, even though the car itself is not very exciting, I would definitely jump at that opportunity to get back into a competitive environment for the fun of competition and club racing. I think that that's like an okay thing of like, I'm just going to go to this race to have fun, do wheel to wheel, race with other people. That's fun and exciting. Or if I was to go back to another track day, not in a competitive environment, I would want something that would be faster, whether that's taking the Spec E30 and making it more exciting with more power, better tire, better suspension setup, better gearing, whatever it is to make it go faster. And that way I can like be more on pace with my friends and their cars. That would make, I think, a track day more fun, or just like straight line the drug into your veins of like, all right, sprint car at a Speed SF track day and just kind of explode people's minds. That would also be a good solution here.
A little bit different dynamics there too, right? Showing up with the thing that nobody knows what that is or how to expect to work around it, right? And now there's this like super powerful, crazy looking contraption out on track, and you're going to have just people like giving you space because they don't know what else to do.
Right. Well, at least like there was a radical there on this day, and like radicals are pretty fast and like turn really good lap times. Arguably, I think a radical would lap faster than the sprint car, but at least with the sprint car, it's large enough where like if you saw it in your mirror, you just be ha and like get out of the way. Like with a radical, like those can hide a little bit more. So I feel like the safety point would be good, but like yeah, like that's also another fun part of going to like track days and stuff is in a sense kind of like showing off your car of like I got something cool, you got something cool, like we can all appreciate like our cars builds, we're out here using them. Like there is that sense of like community and like social showing off that's a part of track days too.
Sure enough. And I think a lot of professionals get a bad rap for being jaded or somehow not excited or enthused about this thing that they once were excited about. But it's very much that, like, once you've accomplished this thing, like once you've surfed off of Mavericks, getting in the kiddie pool just isn't going to do it for you, even if you just love surfing for the nature of it, right? So it's one of those things where I've heard pros talk about this, and they're really careful to say, yeah, I'm not just going to get in any car. If I'm going to go race, I need to make sure it's a good car. It's a competitive car. It's one that I want my reputation considered in relation to my performance in it, and that I won't be unfortunately branded as a poor driver because I was hampered by the car or the machinery that I was given.
This is like terrible to say, but like people are like, oh, going to track days and driving on track, it's so much fun. What I can tell you of that's way more fun than just doing track days, it's winning. It's winning races. It's being competitive. It's standing on podiums, getting hardware, spraying champagne. That's fun. And I think that's what's such like a weird mindset shift that happens in regards to driving cars and motorsports, is it moves away from just like the sole fun and fulfillment of the activity to like, no, I don't want to do this activity unless I can succeed and win and have victory and be successful. And like, I think that's where a lot of racing drivers get this sort of like jaded mindset. And like, you talk to a lot of like professional drivers and they're just like very deadpan and they're not excited about anything and their life is just terrible, or it's so it seems, because it's like they had their glory day, they're on the top of the mountain, now all of a sudden like they're just continually chasing the next peak of like, I want to be there again, I want to feel that, I want to stand on a podium, I want the excitement and like the complete adrenaline rush of just success and victory. And like, yeah, I mean, it's totally chasing a high. If you really think about it in motorsports, it's totally just like drug usage of like just wanting a harder hit or the bigger high. And like, you'll string yourself out eventually and just kind of be like, all right, I've kind of ruined this activity. And that's what I was worried about. I didn't want to be one of those people. I was like, going to a track day, it should be a fun and exciting thing. And it's so fun and exciting for so many other people. It's like, I don't want to be that strung out ex-racer that's just like, hates this activity that once was like so fulfilling. And so I was like, okay, I have to find, after this track day, I'm like, I'm not giving up. Like I want to find a way to like having fun again and like being okay with it not being as exciting maybe as I would want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think the parallel is apt. This is an intrinsic high that we're chasing, right? This is adrenaline. This is dopamine. These are drugs in our body that we're trying to generate or have, come to the fore so that we can actually benefit from that. And it's hard to recreate that once you've been at the top of the mountain, so to speak, right? So how would you give advice to somebody who's maybe trying to return to track days or looking at making this change between competitive driving and time trial or just even driving, quote unquote, for fun? What would you advise somebody to do or how to approach it maybe differently than you did going in? Or what are the dynamics of the things that, okay, forget the sprint car for a minute, but like an extra 100 horsepower, that would have made it more exciting for you, or a less capable tire or a more capable tire? Is there things that you could have done, or if somebody else is going to try to approach this kind of problem the same way after being away from it for a while, how do you set them up for success?
I think going back to what you were talking about of like defining what is your definition of fun, I think is a really important step. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't do that. I was just like, just go have fun. Well, what is fun? I was like, going to the track, turning laps, like being back into that community, that should be fun enough. And I think I really didn't do it justice and should have like thought a little bit harder about it of, okay, let me set goals for myself, understanding that achieving a goal or coming away from the track day feeling like I worked on something or was progressive or developed on one or two things, that would have made me feel more fulfilled of having fun, or then defining what that fun is. And so for this track day, I should have set up my lap timer, which usually for like track day people, you're like, forget about the lap timer, don't look at your times. But for this case, like because I had no one else to compare to, there was no leaderboard, there was no like comparison to other Spec E30s, like I should have been a little bit more competitive against myself. Like if knowing and defining my fun as like being competitive or having a competitive environment, I should have found that in myself, because I wasn't going to be able to compare against these other people, even my friends with their street cars. It doesn't match up. And so I should have had my lap timer at least set up and be like, okay, can I go faster on the next lap? All right, try something different in this corner. That didn't work. Try to be a little bit smoother. That would have at least kept me focused from session to session and have something to fixate on rather than letting my mind kind of wander and not really having a good plan. Now, the tires that I brought were very old tires that were just kind of laying on the shelf. I knew they were not going to be good. And so I knew they weren't going to be fast. And that's why I should have had the comparison to myself, because I was looking at my lap times being like, God, back in my day, I used to be able to do 2 seconds a lap faster. It's like, well, how do you know that the track's not in that prime condition? You're not on the same tire.
Yeah.
You don't have it dialed in the exact same way. Like, don't compare yourself to like what your best is and be like, you need to beat that. So I should have been better of like competing against myself.
Well, and there's this mindset too, like for the drifter types, which I'd include you in that, having a poor set of tires actually can increase the fun quite a bit.
Right. And like that'll increase the dynamic of the car moving around. The unfortunate thing about Spec E30s, maybe specifically mine as well, because I'm still on the old suspension, it's really soft, so the car leans a lot. The differentials are also not like the tightest diffs. This is also regulated by the Spec E30 rules. So having crap tires, this type of suspension, and a pretty loose, limited slip differential, basically what it meant was like it just picked up the inside tire and was just roasting the inside tire. So it wasn't like exciting that it was like stepping the rear out and then you have enough power to like hold the slide. That would have been exciting. That would have been fun. Unfortunately, these cars aren't really set up to do that. And Spec E30s in general, very tight wheelbase, very twitchy and snappy. So like I was still able to slide the car around, but it was more kind of like the car steps around, you got to have the quick hands to catch, which is exciting and fun. So like, yes, having crappy tires was exciting. In that sense, I probably should have had even crappier tires, which would have helped the situation to kind of go past that weird like gripped up but not enough grip and kind of like twitchy nature to just like full-blown like uncontrollable sliding everywhere. That would have been exciting. That would have been a good way to go about it.
Something you said made me think about one of the problems I had even early on just doing regular track days, well before I ever started thinking about competition, which is the community part. You know, a lot of people go to the racetrack with a bunch of buddies. And then they come away at the end of the day like, wow, that was fun. But like, I never talked to my friends. We never got to hang out. Sometimes that's because you're in different run groups. Sometimes that's because you're running just differently classed vehicles. Sometimes you're just out of phase from one another and there's enough other traffic that you just don't really see each other out on track. And there's things you could do, like you can plan, all right, we're going to go out together. We're going to stay close to each other. We're going to find that opportunity to do a little cat and mouse and some practicing point buys and passing and things like that. But in reality, it's a lot harder to orchestrate those things in the uncontrolled environment of just the open public track day, right? On a test day, on a private day, in some other situation where the environment is more controlled, you're much more able to do those things. You said you were able to practice some race starts or things like that along the way. You can find windows for that, but that hanging out with your buddies part of it, that is, in my mind, a big part of what makes these activities fun. Getting to know the people you're out there on track with, knowing their capabilities, knowing their limitations, knowing how to dice it up with them in a way that's fun and safe and trustworthy, but at the end of the day, you can all go back and do it again. Maybe if there was a way to sort of post up with your friends beforehand, I kind of wonder if you had a game plan that like, hey, watch your clock at exactly 11:15, which is halfway through our session. We're all going to come in through pit lane and exit pit lane together so that we can have a couple of laps hanging with each other. And you know, that's just one way to do it, and I'm sure there's tons of others. But I think about that in the form of the reason we call it club racing is there's a club, and a club is a group of people who know each other and have a common set of interests or approaches to a thing or environment they want to be in. And I think that's an important aspect of what makes driving a race car or a street car at the racetrack really enjoyable, is that relating to other people, comparing your performance to other people in a friendly and maybe even still competitive way. So maybe that's fodder for both of us to think about next time out. Like, how do you make sure you go and actually have fun in addition to the ways that the car, the machinery, and our mindset might help?
Yeah, and with the friend aspect of it, I'd say coming up with a plan beforehand. Like, I think like kind of shooting from the hip while you're in the middle of a track day, it's very hard to like get people organized. But like having that discussion before you go to the track day of like, all right, like, one, let's make sure that we all have like the same goals in the mindset.
Yes.
Because like if one person's like, no, I'm chasing a PB or this, that, the other, and be like, okay, leave them alone, right? Don't get in their way. Like let them do their thing. But then if people are like, yeah, let's like get together this session, let's all roll out together. It's also making sure that you and your friends, like you're saying, are in the same run group. So like making sure it's like everyone qualifies for the open passing group and we all have cars that are around the same lap times. Typically then you should be in the same run group there. But then I don't even know, like, is there an easy way to have like on-track communication with one another, like intercoms, which I know like motorcycle drivers, they have like the built-in like helmet things, but it'd be cool if there was like a tool to be like able to talk to one another while you're on track. Cause like you're saying, it'd be cool like halfway through a session be like, because there was one session that like I could see my friends and I was like, I'm just far enough away from them on track. Like I'm not going to be able to like catch them or for them to catch me. We're on like opposite sides, which like maybe in that moment, like one of us could, you know, just be like, okay, I can see them. Let me pull into the pits, wait until they come on the front straight and then try to like come out behind them.
Right, or have your protocol, you flash your high beams or something, they know you want to catch up and you're going to hang back a little for you to get there.
Right, and that's like the preemptive discussion of like, okay, I want to make sure like you're not trying to do something, like you don't have a goal and I'm going to get in your way if I like try to get around you. But I feel like for the most part, like if everyone's on the same page of like, yeah, that'd be fun. Like let's dice it up a little bit, or like, one person leads for a couple laps and then like kind of pull off the side, the other person leads for a couple laps, stuff like that. Like I think preemptive communication discussion there is worthwhile. Then like, yeah, if you want to be around cars, pulling into the pits and just waiting, like watching the front straight and be like, hey, he's pulling onto the front straight now, like go, like leave the pits kind of deal. I think you can kind of make it happen, but the biggest thing is, just communication beforehand.
Yeah, I love that idea of being able to talk to your friends on track. I wonder in practical reality how good of an idea it really is, right? It's a distraction, but people are free to manage it the way they need to. And I think about sim racing, when we go on iRacing, very frequently we'll set up a separate Discord channel and we'll chat with each other during the race. And inevitably there's a few people who tune out. They just mute everything because they don't want to be bothered by the distraction. Fine, they're the ones out there chasing their personal best or doing whatever it is to run their game. But for everybody else, you can kind of participate in that, and it's fun, and you can encourage each other. You can talk smack to each other. You can make coordination and plans during a session or during time on track that way, in a way that's really hard because driving on track is a solitary activity, even though we're out there doing it with a bunch of other people. So having that communication mechanism I've found would be really cool, but at the same time, there's some dragons here we have to be careful about. Not everybody's going to be equally adept at handling the load of race car at speed in traffic and also communicating clearly with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing in sim racing, like you're talking about, of like being in iRacing, like the group chat is like kind of a really funny part of like doing sim racing, is like everyone yelling at each other, like chiming in or saying stupid stuff. Like it can definitely add a different, more fun element to a track day. So I guess this conversation, like, are you excited to get into your next track day? Are you pretty weary of like going from competition back to it?
I don't know. I was all ready to go out with you to Thunderhill for this track day. And in a way, I'm kind of glad I didn't. I maybe am at a different point in my re-entry into this that I'm just not ready yet. But it's really helpful to hear about your experience, because I might do just like you, feeling like, I've been at a further point of my achievement in this space. Just coming back to a track day, that's like coming back to training wheels. I mean, like, how much prep do I need to do? How much thought do I need to put into it? But if I think back to how I did when I did this well in preparing for even a test day, not even necessarily a race, it paid off so much. Just doing a little prep, spending a little time in my mind, getting ready for what it was I was trying to accomplish. The outcome was inevitably better. Even if the day didn't seem as good in some way, I was able to approach it in a way, deal with it better off.
Yeah, mental preparation is definitely a space that not a lot of people talk about. And like the mental side of driving, racing, being on track is like such a huge part of it. And like driver's mind and stuff like that is just always so fascinating. And like anything that's super mental like that, and like preparation and all that sort of stuff, complacency is like your biggest enemy. And just being like okay with, or thinking, oh, I got this, or not putting that focus and effort into something that it well deserves. And for me, thankfully for this track day, it wasn't like, oh, I wadded up a car because like I wasn't paying attention or thinking like, oh, I got this, like no worries. Thankfully, it was just like I didn't find fulfillment and that much fun in it. But like, yeah, easily if you're complacent or jumping back in the car and being like, oh, this thing's slow, like I got this, I don't need to think too hard about it, that's where things can kind of jump up and bite you. So yeah, learn my lesson. Thankfully, it was just I didn't have as good of a time as I thought. My expectations were not met. But yeah, mental process, the mental preparation, getting into that headspace is huge and is key for any day, whether that's non-competitive and especially if it is competitive.
That's awesome. I love hearing about these stories of our checkered past, even if they're not that all in the past.
Thanks for listening to my rant of how my track day did not live up to the expectations that I had for it.
No, great insight and inspiration too. Thanks, Sylas.
Thanks, Todd.
Hey, thanks for listening. This has been Cold Start.